All this eligibility, all these lawsuits might finally be coming into play for teams like Gonzaga.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on in, Locked On College Crossover, Locked On Pac-12, Locked On Zags, Christian Rao, Andy Patton here. Today's episode is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Well, folks, on today's episode, we're going to zig or zag. We're going to talk a little recruiting on the trail down in Southern California. San Diego State doing some really interesting things with their men's basketball team. But first, Andy, we got to talk about it. We didn't talk about anything involving lawyers and anything last week, so we got to make sure we bring up eligibility and things like that this week. It seems like there's been a change, maybe in the right direction, for some players to have eligibility, especially a player like Donovan Dent, who might be heading to Gonzaga. What are you hearing, and what are your rumblings over with the Zags?
Yeah, it's like I said on a recent show, we're pretty much only talking about lawsuits, and I know the difference between a TRO and an injunction and what a stay is and all sorts of stuff, and have never attended law school and yet feel like I'm reading legal documents on a daily basis at this point, such as life in this era of college athletics. But yeah, for Gonzaga, the main thing is this California lawsuit, which was filed almost a month ago, or maybe a little over a month ago, that finally we got a ruling on. And most of the other state cases, like in Georgia and Ohio and in Tennessee, it seemed to take less time. I'm not sure why there was such a delay in California, other than maybe the court system just being a little backed up. But Donovan Dent, a very notable name on this list. Xaivian Lee, another very notable name, both point guards that have been connected to Gonzaga. Lee was kind of a late addition onto as a plaintiff in this lawsuit. He 24 players joined that lawsuit like a week ago, and then all of them, of course, were granted their eligibility. Now that's, of course, pending an NCAA appeal, which we know is going to happen. They already appealed in Ohio and got a stay in that case, which means that everybody who's in that lawsuit is kind of paused temporarily right now in terms of their eligibility. It's incredibly chaotic and confusing and challenging, but ultimately, from the Pac-12 perspective and from a Gonzaga perspective, these 73 student athletes getting currently eligible and the ability to enter the transfer portal is very good news for Gonzaga. Lee's in the portal. Donovan Dent is going to enter the transfer portal. Those are two huge potential targets for the Zags to help finalize their roster.
Yeah, and Gonzaga lost quite a few players this offseason, whether from eligibility, heading to the pros, the portal, leaving back and going back to the internationals. I mean, there's definitely been some few surprises for Mark Few this year, not only him becoming a Hall of Famer, but just trying to rebuild this roster. So trying to figure out maybe bringing in some players that have some experience might be very good at them trying to get back to the Sweet 16 and maybe even beyond the first year in the Pac-12. Do you like your chances of any of these players finding themselves in Gonzaga, especially a player like Donovan Dent, who has some good pedigree inside college basketball, who has played at a pretty high level and would probably fit Gonzaga's mold pretty well?
Yeah. I think Gonzaga is going to get one of Donovan Dent or Xaivian Lee. I think there's a very, very high likelihood of that happening. I know, again, that both have been connected to the program, and I think that the Zags are in a position where they're going to make sure they don't strike out on both of these guys. So if it's not Dent, it's Lee, and vice versa. They'll get one of them. I don't know who exactly is the top target for them. I think it depends on budgetary restrictions and things of that nature, and what these guys are looking for specifically. Both would be a great fit. Dent's a little bit better passer, a little bit better facilitator than Lee. Lee's a little bit more efficient of a scorer. He's scaled up a little better to the SEC than Dent did in the Big Ten last year, which I think is notable in that regard. Both of them struggled to shoot the ball from three last year, but Lee was more efficient inside the arc. I think Lee's also a little bit better of a defender, which is important when evaluating this team's perimeter defense. I think there's some areas there that you want to make sure you have that shored up. Isaiah Harwell is going to be a good defender. Davis Fogel showed glimpses of being a good defender last year, but you don't want him exerting all of his energy on defense if you don't need him to. Masama Diop obviously going to erase a lot of mistakes down on the block, but the better defender you can get at the point of attack, the better it is for Gonzaga. And I think that might be Lee for out of these two guys. But yeah, I think you feel great for Gonzaga. If you get either of them, it doesn't matter which one. If you get, people will have their preference, and I think a lot of people will lean Dent, but the idea that Xaivian Lee is a consolation prize or like not the preferred target is kind of silly to me, because he's an excellent player and I think would be a really, really strong fit in this starting lineup as the primary lead ball handler for a team that right now doesn't have their top guy there. Javon Bennett transferred from Dayton that they landed a few weeks ago. He's an excellent player. He's a little bit more of a score first guard and would be truly one of the best backup point guards in the entire country if Gonzaga lands one of Dent or Lee. If the Zags need to go into the season with Bennett as the starter, it's not the worst thing in the world, but man, the depth that they would suddenly have if Bennett is your backup point guard would be outstanding.
I need to change my tune and not just thinking just Dent. I need to put Lee in that conversation for as well. So thank you for that, because I definitely am like, okay, is it Dent or bust? Because that's all I see. All I hear on social, like, man, we really want Donovan Dent. We really want that to happen. Obviously, I know what he is capable of. I've seen it, but you're right. Lee obviously could be a good standpoint as well. We've seen it from other schools as well. Colorado State guard Jevin Nunez just entering the transfer portal. He played for Colorado State last year. Don't think he'll be back with the Rams, but could find himself in another squad. This does impact former Utah State, former Colorado State players, obviously. Who knows if that means that any of these teams will add. That'll certainly be interesting. But, Andy, this is what I got to ask you. And this is like, I don't know if this is the elephant in the room or not. When does this line get drawn? When do you figure this out? Like, when does this happen? Like, it feels like they keep pushing it back and adding another lawsuit and things like that. Do you think this will ever be over?
It's going to go as long. It's seemingly going to go as long as possible. Like, the NCAA does not have any qualms about dragging this all the way into the start of the season. Again, they got their stay in Ohio, which means that lawsuit, it's still going to go through the appeals process, and there's no guarantee that the NCAA will get it reversed on appeal. In fact, I think it's probably unlikely that they will, but right now the players who are eligible via that lawsuit, one of them is Colby King, who played at Utah State. He announced he plans, once this lawsuit, once the injunction was granted in Ohio, he announced he plans to transfer to Auburn. And now, because that lawsuit has got a stay on it, he can't transfer to Auburn. He's only eligible to come back to Utah State. Now, I think ultimately he's probably going to wait it out and assume that lawsuit or that injunction will eventually stick, and then he'll be able to transfer to Auburn. But what a cluster to be in a position where you think you're going to go somewhere. Now you're told you can't go somewhere. For the record, for Gonzaga, Javon Bennett would be in the same situation. The reason he is not is because he entered the transfer portal back in April, which means that the federal lawsuit in Colorado granted him an additional layer of protection, where even with the Ohio lawsuit, if it were to get overturned, he would still be eligible to play for Gonzaga because of that. But again, it's insane that there are some players who are eligible because they enter the transfer portal, some who are not, some who only will get eligible if they sue. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's obviously ludicrous that this is the path forward at this point right now. Neither side is going to give up. The players are not going to give up. This is once in a lifetime opportunity to make millions of dollars playing a sport they should be allowed to play. They should have been allowed to play from the get-go from the NCAA, but they are refusing to go quietly on this situation, and I think are perfectly willing to make it as confusing and frustrating as possible, even though it is to the detriment of their product.
Yeah, I can totally understand why fans, diehards, are getting exhausted of this, because it's exhausting. It certainly is very tiring, and we'll see what happens around the bend here. Let's shift focus here. Let's talk a little bit recruiting, the future of the Pac-12. San Diego State is making some noise on the recruiting trail, and I want to get Andy's thoughts on that. We'll do that next. It's a Locked On College Crossover. Hey, but first, there are more live events than ever we're seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals, the theater. The hard part usually isn't deciding what you want to attend. It's actually getting those tickets between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and those surprise fees. Buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans turn to Game Time. I know I use them. I know Andy uses it. He goes to music festivals all the time. And he shows it off, too, on his social media, man. He just lets everybody know how cool he is. And using Game Time, it's an app built to make buying tickets so simple. Upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, exclusive saving opportunities that help you get the events you want without the usual hassle. The worst thing in the world, with the exception of internet lag, Andy, is getting to a game or getting to a ticket and you're like, man, I love this spot. It's fantastic. Oh, the price is great. Then you go to checkout and it's almost double the price because of those surprise fees. You don't get that with Game Time. You know what it actually does? It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event. So do that with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, welcome back to the show. Locked On College Crossover, Andy Patton, Christian Rachal, Locked On Zags, Locked On Pac-12, and San Diego State has got some momentum right now on the recruiting trail. It's worth talking about. There's been 3 names that I have seen, might be more, but there's definitely been 3 names that have certainly taken my surprise. A top 60 prospect in Keaundre Morris. He's taking a visit to San Diego State, also taking it to St. Mary's and Arizona State, so he's battling against some top programs. I've seen some other things on King Rachal, who is another 4-star that is also with Utah State as well. Don't want to leave out the other Pac-12 school, but San Diego State in the mix for this one. And then there's another one as well, another big man, Andy. I'm going to let you take this because you're in this. You're not only right for the Zags, you write for San Diego State as well. You understand this quite fully.
Yeah, we have been covering San Diego State. Fun to see how this team recruits. Brian Dutcher's been great at this for a long time. And I think, it's one of those things where in the NIL era, in the transfer portal era, you see a lot of coaches having to adjust kind of on the fly and kind of figure out how to operate in a different style. And one of the things that coaches who've been around for a long time and who've been successful is they're trying to not reinvent the wheel as much as they possibly can. And one of the things that Dutcher and the Aztecs have always done well is not only developing talent over 2, 3, 4 years down in San Diego, but also identifying talent. Like Brian Dutcher has never been a coach that's bringing in a bunch of high 4-star, top 30, top 40 guys. Like even before the advent of NIL and the fact that money was really permeating the sport, even before that, they weren't getting those players. Even when they were consistently winning the Mountain West, consistently making solid runs in March, like they still weren't really recruiting at that level because they found ways to identify kids that fit their system. Tough kids, often very raw athletic kids who are better on defense than offense, super athletic type guys. Like they found those players who were getting under recruited by power conference programs and went out and targeted them early, developed them over the course of 2 to 3 years and watched them explode into incredibly talented players, by the time they're juniors or seniors. That is still the MO for Brian Dutcher and San Diego State. That's still what they're trying to do. The issue they're having is retaining said players, which is obviously much more difficult in this era. And you look at last year's roster and this year's roster, I mean, they lose BJ Davis, they lose Magungwat, they lose Miles Bird, but they also lose other kind of developmental guys like Pharaoh Compton and Taj DeGorville and Miles Heide. And these players that were, not necessarily stars, but players that were recruited by San Diego State that got a lot better from their freshman year to their sophomore, junior, senior year, and then end up leaving the program, instead of sticking it all the way out. That's a huge challenge and a big bummer for San Diego State, but I'm encouraged by the fact that they don't seem to be giving up on that strategy. And I think high school recruiting is vital right now, even if you can't guarantee that you'll keep the players for as long as you used to be able to. High major programs like high resource rich schools, Kentucky, Kansas, et cetera, they're prioritizing transfer portal targets. They're prioritizing guys who were at San Diego State. They're going after those guys. So if they're not going after anybody outside the top 25 high school players, that's where San Diego State, I think, has an opportunity. That's where you see them having a 4-star kid, top 50 recruit in King Rachal, and a top 60 recruit in Keaundre Morris. That's how you get those guys on campus. Obviously Arizona State's in the mix. For Rachal, I think UW's in the mix. He's also visiting a couple other places as well. That he's visiting USC, he's visiting Oregon, obviously Utah State, like you mentioned. So there's still high major programs that are in the mix here, but I think San Diego State's in an advantageous spot of being able to offer these players more of an opportunity to play minutes right away, to develop in a system that has been extraordinary at player development for decades at this point. And I think they're doing the right thing in trying to strike right now, while the 2027 class is a little bit under recruited because of all of the 5-and-5 nonsense that's happening.
Yeah, that's a really good point with that. And people are so focused on, trying to get this squad ready to go with maybe potentially sneaking in a player, like we just mentioned in the first segment, and not so much momentum on 2027. Well, San Diego State looks like they're looking in a different direction. Keaundre Morris, he's going to be on campus this weekend at San Diego State. I mean, number 55 on SC's next top 100. He plays for the defending national champion Bella Vista down in Arizona, their high school. Interesting player. I've seen a little bit of film on him, not enough. I need to look more into him for sure. I'll be completely transparent there. But what I've seen from Morris, certainly an interesting player. And it's not just him, though. There's a couple other players that really have stepped up. King Rachal, as you mentioned, and the other one, who I'm missing the name here.
Precious Sam. Precious Sam.
Precious Sam.
Man.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, last year, San Diego State didn't have the best season. I think we can keep that pretty clear. And then obviously losing those players to the portal, does that have a lot to do with last year's success? What does this year's squad for 2026 San Diego State have to do with the 2027 class? Do they need momentum to keep these players around and not choose, schools like Oregon or Utah State or USC or Arizona State instead of the Aztecs?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately money is still going to matter. You still got to be able to, if Oregon is, even if Oregon's promising Rachal, they're not promising playing time. They're saying, hey, you're going to come in, you're going to compete. You might be a guy who plays, 9th, 10th man minutes as a freshman, but we're going to give you $750,000. And San Diego State saying, hey, you're going to come in and compete to play rotation minutes right away, but we're giving you $200,000. That's life-changing amount of money right there. And it's hard for a kid to turn that down. I don't blame any player for especially when you haven't already made that money, for chasing that money. Like King Rachal he's dealing with a hip injury right now. Like he could aggravate an injury in college and miss out on earning opportunities. So ultimately the money is still going to have to be there. I don't think San Diego State has to outbid the power conferences necessarily, but they have to be competitive. They have to be within the range in order to get any of these kids to ultimately commit to their program. But I think their promise of player development, their promise of, look at how much better, so-and-so players have gotten in our system, whether it is a Miles Bird, whether it is, obviously you go back to the Kawhi Leonards of the world, but so many other great players, Malachi Flynn, they've just had so much talent throughout that system, and so many guys who again stayed 3-4 years there and really got a lot better. And I think that's the sales pitch. And the sales pitch is also we're going to pay you competitively. You're going to play in a tough conference. You're going to play Gonzaga. You're going to play Utah State. You're going to compete for an NCAA tournament bid every single year. You're going to be in sunny San Diego. There's a lot of appeals that they have here that are not necessarily impacted by how this team does this upcoming season. I do think another bad year is not going to help. But these kids are coming on campus in August. San Diego State's hoping to get a commitment from them by September or October before the season even starts. Now you get a couple commits in the 2027 class, and then you go out and, have a shockingly bad season and finish 6th in the Pac-12. You may not hold on to those commits. That could end up being the problem that you run into there. So that's obviously a part of it. But I think if a kid's going to commit to a program like San Diego State, they know enough of what they're getting into. And of course they have some kind of contract or verbal agreement financially that I think there'd be pretty good chance of being able to hold on to that kid unless the season just completely goes off the rails.
Yeah. Just putting in perspective here, they're ahead of the curve. San Diego State chasing 3 of these players for the 2027 class. Only 4 teams in the Pac-12 out of the 9 teams, because we're talking basketball here, have a commit for 2027. Gonzaga's got one, Colorado State has one, Washington State has one, and Fresno State has one. No other school, Boise State also has one as well, but no other school has them. So just over half, San Diego State is ahead of the curve, in my opinion, for sure. Well, on the other side, let's play some Zig or Zag. It's a been a fun week. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's do that next, right here, Locked On College Crossover. Hey, but first, Andy, let's talk about our friends at Kalshi. Before season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who will win the division? Who will make the playoffs? Who will win the conference? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? Well, on Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. I got it pulled up right now. College football Pac-12 championship winner. Boise State seen as the 36% favorite. That is the favorite by at least double. That means if you were to believe that Boise State would win the thing, trade $100 right now. You'd have the opportunity to get a max payout of over $265. So if you think Boise State's a surefire thing, you can go ahead and trade that today. Who's another team that you're really high on this year in football that maybe could compete against Boise State to win the conference?
Yeah, I think San Diego State for sure. Lucky Sutton, great running back. They were 9-3 last year, I believe. Like that's a team that I think could make a little bit of noise. If anybody's going to challenge Boise State at the top, I think it's going to be them.
I like that take. And they are seen as just an 18% favorite. They are second in the Pac-12 championship odds at Kalshi. A $100 trade could get a max payout of over $470 if you rode them the entire season. That's interesting because on Kalshi, you're trading against your peers in the live market, meaning there's no house, and as probabilities change, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft, pick the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app, use code LOCKEDON. That's right, code LOCKEDON to get $10 off when you trade $10. That's KALSHI. It's Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. All right, final few minutes here on our Locked On College crossover. And you know what time it is? It's time for Zig or Zag.
It's time for Zig or Zag.
Okay, let's get into it. Sorry, I was jamming a little bit. It was just a good jingle.
Hard not to.
Was it John Stamos of Full House that did that? Who made that jingle? All right. Let's dive into a little Zig or Zag where we talk about the serious and most serious topics of today. And let's start with a serious one on this one. We did get some settlement news with the Mountain West and the Pac-12. We received that number is finally over, we think, right? There's been reports on each side that it might be a little bit of a bitter relationship, but then I've heard some other things of, okay, it's been a nice mutual kind of break apart. They seem to be like willing to possibly have a relationship in the future. So I want to ask you, Zig or Zag, do they have a bitter relationship, or is it going to be more of a mutual one down the road when it comes to all these athletics, not just football, not just basketball? Because I think it's important if these two conferences can find a way to work together.
Yeah, I think I know the concept of Zig or Zag means I can't say both, but I think it is a bitter relationship. Like these two, Gould and Gloria Navarez, were friends for a long time. They worked together. Like I think that there is a little bit of hostility or frustration or whatever words you want to use there. But I think they are also both smart enough to recognize that the relationship between their two conferences, it needs to exist in some capacity for their survival. Frankly, being on the West Coast with so many fewer, local options to play. I mean, on the East Coast, like you can look at a map and you can see a clear divide in the middle of the country in terms of, how many higher education institutions there are. And there's just not nearly as many out West. And so with the power conference teams out here, like, the Big 10 schools and the Big 12 schools kind of not always being as willing to play Pac-12 and Mountain West schools, they need each other. And so I think that both the commissioners are smart enough to recognize that. And I think that they'll bury the hatchet, at least publicly, get through this, get past it, and put themselves in a position where they can rely on each other. Now, if Teresa Gould goes out and snatches UNLV, maybe the bad blood continues, and we'll see, I'm sure we'll have conversations about that if that ends up coming to fruition at some point. But for right now, I think these two recognize the need to have some level of a public relationship, or at least, some relationship within their conferences.
Yeah, no, good point. I like that take, and I think I agree with you on that as well. All right, super serious ones here. Two awesome national holidays today. So Zig or Zag, for which one we talk about first, savory or sweet? Zig or Zag, savory or sweet? Which one?
I've always been savory. I do not have a sweet tooth in the way that most people do. Give me chips in the evening, give me like some more protein. My wife's got a sweet tooth, but not me.
All right. Well, we'll talk about the sweet one at the end, but first we'll start with the savory one. It's National Potato Day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's National Potato Day. Are you kidding me? That is like every big guy's dream here. So tell me, like, what is you're at a restaurant, you're at a steakhouse, whatever the case may be, you're ready, you're dressing it up. What is your go-to? Are you just a butter guy? Are you the works? Like, what is your perfect potato? Do you see those ones on social media, like the UK, where they make all the beans and stuff? Like you can get crazy with potatoes, man. What's your go-to?
Yeah, that's that. I'm not as adventurous. Give me bacon bits for sure. Give me sour cream. Love sour cream, absolutely, and butter as well. But like, yeah, I'm keeping it fairly basic. Like I love mashed potatoes. I love baked potatoes, obviously, but I'm not usually dressing it up all that much. Maybe that makes me boring, generic, basic, whatever it may be. But I'm gonna eat a potato in pretty much any capacity, so I don't need too much pomp and circumstance with it.
Yeah, give me a loaded baked potato, no doubt about that. That is something that I truly enjoy with the cheese and everything. But my go-to, garlic mashed potatoes. That's
There
my
you go.
go-to. Add garlic mashed potatoes into that for sure. All right, back to the serious ones, man. Progressive is one of adds Boise State, one of 13 schools to get their logo on the field, things like that. The reason I ask you this one is because it's going to probably happen for basketball as well. Gonzaga would be a pretty good team to do that. What kind of logo do you think Gonzaga would chase for their court this upcoming season?
I'll be honest, Gonzaga is going to chase wherever pays them the most money. Like they're not going to be overly concerned. Like I'm sure they have some limits on that in some capacity, but for the most part, like they're going to go after whatever they can. And I know like Numerica Credit Union has worked with them a ton out here. That's a local company. I'm sure they would love to have local companies. My absolute favorite option would be a local Spokane coffee company called Thomas Hammer. It was started by a Gonzaga graduate. Their logo is just a hammer, and I think it would look incredible on a basketball court. But I also don't think that Thomas Hammer has the kind of money to buy that level of sponsorship, or at least would not outbid national brands that would be far more boring to be on the court, but that would pay the program a lot more money. And I can tell you with absolute conviction that's the route they're going to go, unless it is like absolutely hideous. But even still, they might go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Big 12 did monster, and that's not going to look good on some of those jerseys because they said they have to stay with the green color. So,
it's gonna be.
I love that.
It's gonna be rough.
So the progressive thing said they're going to do like fan experience stuff for football. Man, could you imagine like fan experience of like bringing the hammer down or something like that with Gonzaga? Like that'd be super cool. So I like that idea for sure. All right, final one here: National Soft Ice Cream Day, not overall ice creaming, soft ice cream day. So that's interesting to me. Usually when I try to get soft ice cream, the machines are broken when I go through drive-thrus. But regardless, what is your go-to ice cream flavor? Like, to me, any mint chocolate chip's my go-to. I certainly love mint chocolate chip, and I love peanut butter ice cream. Like vanilla and peanut butter, like anything peanut butter is my jam. What about you?
Yeah, we have a chocolate peanut butter go-to from Tillamook that we get a lot. That is quite good. There's another one that I think it's called Waffle Cone Swirl that we've been buying lately. Really good. Like just an excellent flavor.
Like bits of cone in the
little bits of cone, little bits of caramel. Like it's just all sorts of goodness. So we there's a froyo place near us too that we've been taking our daughter to. That's been a lot of fun. It's walkable, so that's been fun to load her up with frozen yogurt and some of the accoutrements that come with that. So there's a lot of good options. I've never been a mint guy. Like I don't dislike it. I don't know if it's possible to dislike it, but it's never been my go-to. And I'm glad that I married into a family that doesn't have it as their go-to, because some people it's the only kind they're going to get, and I'm like, I'd survive, but it's not my top choice.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't like mint chocolate chips, so it's like one of those things that if I buy it, it's got to be like it's got to be a small thing, and then like it's probably staying in my fridge for a very long time. So yeah, I get it for sure. Who could you imagine? You clicked on this episode today, and now you're hungry for both potatoes and ice cream. Go figure. You thought you were getting a college basketball conversation, and now you're thinking about potatoes. Let's get out of here. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Make sure you check out Locked On Zags, covering everything Gonzaga Bulldogs. Andy Patton, he has them covered over there. And if you want to get more of the conference, you can check out Locked On Pac-12 for your next episode, your next listen for today. That's going to wrap it up. Please like the video. Please subscribe. This has been a Locked On College crossover of Locked On Zags and Locked On Pac-12.